Well, time to enjoy it. What the hell?
I have returned, the 8th deadly sin, the owner of the Holy Grail, the 9th wonder of the free world, the greatest thing before and since sliced bread, the most powerful known entity in the entire universe.
Hi, Dave.
You're right.
This is magnificent.
Well, Jurassic Park was one of the biggest and most influential movies of all time, so it's no wonder that the studio were keen to turn this blockbuster phenomenon into a franchise.
A sequel to Jurassic Park. Like they would ever do that.
Dave? They did do that.
What? How? The story was finished! The plot was all resolved!
They made 5 sequels.
5? They made 5 sequels to a film about a dinosaur island?
Don't do that.
Fans had been pressuring Michael Crichton to write a sequel to his original book ever since its release, but he always refused, feeling that any sequel he wrote would never be able to live up to the original.
How right he was.
What does that mean?
However, during production of the original movie in 1993, he became more open to the idea after discussions with Spielberg and screenwriter David Koepp. All three then made it clear to the studio that there shouldn't be a new Jurassic Park film without new material from Crichton. By 1994, Crichton stated that he was in the process of developing a new novel, which was eventually released in 1995 called The Lost World.
However, Spielberg wasn't immediately sure that he would come back, as he wanted to take a break from directing after making Schindler's List, though he did sign on as a producer. But thankfully he eventually agreed to direct by the end of 1995, with the movie entering production in 96.
You're just trying to make me feel better.
Ironically, despite insisting on basing the movie on Crichton's material, very little of the novel's plot carried over into the screenplay, and the author had next to no involvement in production. Spielberg stated that while the middle portion of the novel lacked strong narrative momentum, he thought the setup was excellent, and he and Koepp used it as a jumping off point for their own original story.
Though most of the novel's plot was discarded, 2 main ideas were kept that Spielberg liked. The concept of a secret second island of dinosaurs, and a scene in which part of a trailer dangles off a cliff after being attacked by 2 T-Rexes.
Second island? They made a whole second island of dinosaurs?
Yeah, apparently Hammond decided to also make dinosaurs on this whole other second island, and he just didn't bother to tell anyone.
And they made 6 of these?
What is the problem?
I mean, they say that everyone from the first film had to sign a waiver that basically said they're not to disclose what happened on the first island.
You signed a non-disclosure agreement before you went to the island that expressly forbade you from discussing anything you saw. You violated that agreement.
Yeah, I did.
But that's clearly not the case, because some random fella on the subway seems to know everything about it.
This is a slightly different situation.
They also based many of the film's scenes on sequences that appeared in the first novel but not in the first film, such as the opening scene where the little girl gets attacked. Oh no, it's Prince Andrew. Run away, little girl! Oh, never mind, it's just a man-eating dinosaur. That's a relief.
That she somehow doesn't get freaked out by.
Look at it, kids get scared of big dogs. You really think they'd be this calm around a lizard as big as a chicken? And how do her parents not even hear what's going on? There's like 20 dinosaurs squawking at her, and she didn't exactly walk too far away to be out of earshot. But kudos to the movie for having the balls to completely maim a child in the first 4 minutes. And this transition from the girl's mother screaming to Goldblum yawning is pretty seamless. Well done, Spielberg. The T-Rex attacking a waterfall and trying to pull someone into its mouth using its tongue.
No, more like, how the hell did you just get past that massive T-Rex that's outside?
And one of the characters being eaten alive by a pack of smaller dinosaurs. And why would you wear headphones on a dinosaur island? Everything wants to kill you. You need all your senses at your disposal.
Spielberg and Koepp also condensed the cast of the movie by combining multiple of the novel's characters into one. For instance, Malcolm's daughter Kelly was originally one of his university students, but Spielberg changed this as he felt a father-daughter relationship would be much more emotionally involving, because apparently Spielberg has a major hard-on for shit dads. dads.
I don't think so.
Furthermore, the character of Robert Burke in the film was based on real-life paleontologist Robert Bakker, who famously theorized that T-Rexes were natural predators. However, Jack Horner, the film's paleontological advisor, heavily disagreed with this theory, believing that the animals were simply protective of their young and not inherently aggressive, and requested that the character be eaten by the T-Rex as a form of petty revenge! Ironically, the real-life Bakker said he enjoyed the scene as he believed it vindicated his theory that the T-Rex was inherently predatory. But cleverly enough, even the dispute of the T-Rex's behavioural patterns actually made it into the film.
Robert Burke said that the T-Rex was a rogue who would abandon its young at the earliest opportunity. I know I can prove otherwise.
But funnily enough, it wouldn't be the first time that Spielberg was actually inaccurate when developing a dangerous predator's maternal instincts.
I don't care.
By far the biggest change during scripting was the ending. Spielberg had always wanted to include a scene where a dinosaur rampages through a city, but Koepp convinced him to cut it and save it for a potential third film, stating that the scene would only work for a short period of time before becoming unbelievable. So bringing back the dinosaurs from the dead is fine, but having said dinosaurs rampage through a city is unbelievable.
Yes.
No.
However, just a week before filming was due to start, Spielberg changed the ending to have the T-Rex rampage through San Diego, as he wasn't sure he wanted to come back for a third film, and he felt that including a scene with the dinosaurs attacking the mainland would make the movie much more exciting for audiences. It's estimated that the script went through 9 drafts before filming finally began.
In regards to casting, both Jeff Goldblum and Richard Attenborough confirmed they would reprise their roles for the sequel in late 1994. Julianne Moore, Pete Postlethwaite and Vince Vaughn were all cast based on Spielberg's enjoyment of their acting in other projects, namely The Fugitive, In the Name of the Father, and Swingers.
However, Koepp was hesitant about Spielberg's casting of Vanessa Lee Chester as Malcolm's daughter, as he was unsure if audiences would be convinced that a white man would conceive a black child. So bringing back dinosaurs from the dead is absolutely fine, but a white fella conceiving a black child is unbelievable.
Yes.
No.
However, the director, who himself has 2 adopted black children, realised that he's not racist and defended the choice, and Koepp relented. They left the racism in the script though.
Do you see any family resemblance here?
Filming began in September 1996 and wrapped in December that same year, and Spielberg refused to let his actors rehearse beforehand, stating that he wanted the characters' interactions to be as natural and genuine as possible, usually only filming 1 or 2 takes for dialogue scenes.
The Lost World Jurassic Park, no idea why it's titled like that, it's annoying as shit, premiered on May the 19th, 1997 and smashed several box office records, holding the title for the biggest opening weekend of all time until it was surpassed by The Phantom Menace. And it grossed a worldwide total of $618 million worldwide.
However, despite its financial success, critical reception was lukewarm. Though the effects, musical score and cinematography were praised, the screenplay and lack of character development were widely criticized, a stance which hasn't really improved with time, as many still regard the film as one of Spielberg's weakest efforts.
For his part, Spielberg himself was also highly critical of the final film, stating that he became less and less passionate about the picture as production went on. I beat myself up, growing more and more impatient with myself. It made me wistful about doing a talking picture, because sometimes I got the feeling I was just making this big silent raw movie. I found myself saying, is that all there is? It's not enough for me. My sequels aren't as good as my originals because I go on to every sequel I've made and I'm too confident. This movie made $1 gazillion, which justifies the sequel. So I come in like it's going to be a slam dunk and I wind up making an inferior movie to the one before. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that he'd be wrong about his own movie.
Yes, it would.
So wait, is he wrong or isn't he?
Yes.
What?
What?
Wow.
Now look, the first movie was a lazy excuse to get dinosaurs back in the 20th century. We all happily ignored all the impossible DNA bullshit to make it happen because we wanted dinosaurs. So although this film is a lazy excuse to do it again, I'm still somewhat lenient about it. How half the film is Jeff Goldblum making fun of the script himself?
I'm not making the same mistakes again.
No, you're making all new ones.
Ooh, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
You try to sound like Hammond, it just comes off like a hustle. I mean, it's not your fault. They say talent skips a generation, so, hey, I'm sure your kids are going to be sharp as tacks.
When the adult sees that it's us, once again with his baby, isn't it going to be like
You.
you know, there may be some angry Recognition.
And if it's not him, it's his daughter.
So they actually want to build another park here? After what you said happened on the other island?
I have to admit, Goldblum is genuinely great in this film. I like how he's not just the same wisecracking smartass from the first film. He's genuinely haunted by what he experienced on that island. It's some great character development.
Goes up to where the trees are and keeps the researchers out of harm's way.
Actually, it put him at a very convenient biting height.
Okay, so he still has some humor, but it's well handled. Rather than just the snark we've seen in the first movie, it comes from a place of cynicism after surviving the island.
I just don't get why they don't nuke the damn island after the first film. What good can come from keeping them alive? Yeah, it's another island, another bunch of scientists and a kid, more dino attacks, but the movie does have enough good in there for me to still somewhat enjoy it. A sequel shouldn't exist, but if it did, at least have fun with it.
I actually really like the setup. In just the first 15 minutes, they managed to establish the main inciting incident of the plot, re-establish the personalities of all the returning characters, introduce most of the prominent new characters, and their relationships with one another. It's very efficient and well-paced storytelling.
Vince Vaughn is so boring in this. They have him and they don't let him be funny at all. To be fair, he does his best with what he's given, but the character is so wooden and expendable, there's not a whole lot he can really do.
And Julianne Moore seems really off in this. I don't know whether she was bored or maybe overwhelmed by all the special effects, but her performance is just very wooden. To be fair, she did openly admit that she only took on the role to pay off her divorce, so she was probably slumming it.
The characters are almost all interchangeable. Are any of the side characters the least bit memorable? You've got Jeff Goldblum, who is Jeff Goldblum. Julianne Moore is fun because it's Julianne Moore, but that's about it.
Although Pete Postlethwaite plays a game hunter and he is easily the best character in the film. Within his first minute of screen time, he gives this badass speech and you instantly understand who he is and what his deal is.
Carnivores hunt on game trails. Do you want to set up base camp or a buffet?
There's an RV scene where they get attacked by a T-Rex and shoved off a cliff, and this scene is actually incredible. It is on par with the car scene in the original. It is flawless. The suspense is tremendous. The effects are great. It is amazing.
We need rope! Rope! What? Anything else? Yeah, 3 double cheeseburgers with everything. No onions on mine!
I don't know, we'll turn it over!
Alright, time and a place, guys.
The RV sequence is absolutely sensational. Everything from the music, the acting, the effects, the tension, the pacing, it's all incredible, and it easily stands toe-to-toe with any of the tensest scenes in the original movie, even if the glass clapping beneath Sarah's hands is rendered with not the most convincing CGI.
Would a car really be able to drag up a whole fucking RV, though?
I know, somehow the T-Rexes managed to get away quietly without anyone noticing them leave, and then when Eddie shows up, they return just as quietly again. His death is also pretty damn graphic. I do like how dark the movie gets at times.
No clue how all of them survived this drop, but who cares? It looks sweet.
Someone on this island is the greatest predator that ever lived.
Jimmy Savile, quick, hide your kids! There's a scene where a T-Rex sneaks into the tent, and it does look a bit silly.
The T-Rex just acts like a stealth god throughout the entire film. Apparently a 13-meter, 5-ton eating machine is quite light-footed. Why did Sarah even hold on to her bloody jacket to begin with? Earlier she said there was a chance the T-Rex could track them down, so why risk holding on to something that would lead them straight to them? And then that's exactly what happens. This is the main issue with the film. I know the characters in the first film didn't make the best decisions, but these characters make them look like fucking rocket scientists. We've not even mentioned Dieter wandering off and getting separated from the group, or one character warning people not to go into the long grass.
Don't go into the long grass!
Before immediately running into the long grass. It just becomes overkill to the point that all of the characters look like fucking morons. In the first movie, none of the characters had ever encountered anything like this before. They were scientists, not animal experts, so it made sense that most of their decisions would be impulsive or rash. But here, everyone on the island has either already had experience with the dinosaurs or they have experience with large predators. So there's no reason for their decision making to be this poor.
It is quite amusing though how velociraptors are supposed to be highly intelligent. He goes through a door and the raptor just says fuck it and yeets itself through the window. But I must admit, I can definitely see why a lot of people don't like this movie. It has a lot of problems. For instance, these are some of the dumbest characters I have ever seen. Considering how much John Hammond condemned the first island in the original film.
After careful consideration, I decided not to endorse your park.
So have I.
Why is he so into doing it again here? The arsehole even sent Goldblum's girlfriend onto the island without telling him and expects him to go after her, crazy old bastard.
You lied. You twisted the facts surrounding the deaths of 3 people.
Hang on, 3 people? Bullshit! You got Gennaro, Arnold, Nedry, Muldoon, the park ranger in the opening scene, and that's just off the top of my head. I mean, I guess you could argue that Nedry's body was never found, but still, you'd presume he's dead after a while.
Sarah! Sarah Harding!
As opposed to Sarah Jessica Parker.
Nick Van Owen!
As opposed to Nick Cage or Nick Jonas.
How many Sarahs or Nicks do you think are on this island? And stop shouting! You're on an island full of dinosaurs, they can all hear you!
There are times when the special effects clearly have downgraded from the previous film.
Yeah, it's great seeing them again, but during some of the wide shots in particular, they just don't look nearly as good. Compare this to the Brachiosaurus in the first movie, and it just doesn't have the same level of charm or wonder.
The CGI just always looks fake. You can always tell they're just not in the same environment as the humans. They really haven't aged very well, despite the original ironically still holding up amazingly.
The practical ones do look amazing though, and admittedly, when they bust all the dinosaurs out of their cages, it is super cool to see so many animatronics all in one place. Look, I understand being curious, but why would you risk getting this close to a baby dinosaur? I know they're herbivores, but they can still get aggressive. Hold up, let me just go and pet this baby elephant in front of its mum. What's the worst that could happen?
Death.
Well, yes, death. That's what I was getting at. It's a rhetorical question, you idiot.
Oh, sorry.
This film sucks! It's also revealed that Malcolm's daughter secretly stowed away on the boat, but we're supposed to believe she traveled from San Diego to Costa Rica and then was driven across the island and no one noticed her hiding in the RV? Did no one bother reporting her missing on the mainland or bother to call her father?
Kelly, what are you doing? No, what are you... Hey, don't go out there. It's not safe.
You literally just told her to go outside 10 seconds ago.
Privacy, outside.
The characters literally decide to kidnap a baby T-Rex. These are the dumbest people to have ever lived. They then use the baby to lure out the mother.
They even break the baby's leg on purpose. I mean, in the original script, Ludlow tripped over the baby by accident and that's how its leg became injured. But from the way it's edited, you'd think the pair of them went full psycho and made it for shits and giggles like a bunch of idiots. And this point is where the movie really starts to lose me. The first act starts off really well built up as we get to know the different characters and learn about their different ideologies regarding the dinosaurs. But then it all gets thrown out the window for the sake of mindless spectacle with the dinosaurs breaking out and smashing shit. It's really disappointing to see a character-driven narrative suddenly get thrown to the wind for the sake of brainless action scenes.
But it looks cool!
How did the dinosaurs manage to fling a flaming car into a tree? I know they're strong, but they're not the Hulk. And it's not like they could have picked it up and thrown it.
And then they take the baby to their RV. Are you out of your fucking mind? It's a baby T-Rex. That's like going on a date with Eminem's daughter. Why would you do that?
I must admit though, the animatronic for the baby T-Rex is actually incredible. It's honestly hard to believe that isn't a real animal.
I just fail to sympathize with anyone this mentally challenged. I give up. I hope they all die.
Other animals are gonna hear this.
See?
To be fair, hearing the T-Rexes roar again for the first time is so eerie, and it builds up the tension really well. They do the Jaws tactic, only showing the trees moving below the high-hide as the dinosaurs close in on the RV.
They came for their infants.
Whoa, yes! What the fuck did you expect?
What, did you think they were coming round for afternoon tea and biscuits?
You literally said this earlier that you thought this would be the case. These people actually expect them to return the baby and the giant fucking T-Rexes, these massive deadly predators, to be understanding and leave them alone. It's all wine and roses. It's interesting, in the first movie when it was someone else's kid, Ian ran around with a flare like a moron, but once it's his own daughter, he just stands around and watches. And of course, the T-Rex that can keep up with a car is suddenly outran by humans. Can't they just dive into a bush and then not move? This guy genuinely believes he could take on the king of the dinosaurs solo. How this one guy runs out into the mouth of a T-Rex because he had a snake in his shirt. Where do they find these people?
This is admittedly a pretty great shot as we subtly see the raptors running through the grass to meet into the middle of the field where the humans are. Although in the first film the raptors instantly surrounded and killed Muldoon without him noticing, but now Ian, Sarah and Kelly didn't notice that there was one right behind the car they just walked past. I get that they're stealthy, but they aren't aren't ninjas, and it sure takes its sweet-ass time trying to eat them. Just eat them! This whole sequence is fucking asinine. The smart, intimidating predators from the first film have now become cartoon characters who trip over their own feet, slide down rooftops, and topple through windows like they're in a fucking Three Stooges sketch.
He must be a ninja because a raptor is literally attacking his car at one point, and he still somehow manages to get out of it and enter the building and climb up to the girls without being caught. And then the highly intelligent predator is defeated by gymnastics. Maybe this movie does suck!
Why does the raptor just stand there and watch her spin around instead of just, attacking? And how the hell is a 10-year-old girl strong enough to kick a 10-foot, 400-pound dinosaur through a window? Either way, I guess the movie wasn't that bad. They ended at the most logical point of the film. There were some stupid moments, but it could have been a lot worse.
Dave? There's still 30 minutes left.
What? There's 30 fucking minutes left?!
Vince Vaughn even removes the bullets from the hunter's gun. You just murdered a man. In fact, they were going to die anyway, so this was just mean-spirited and evil. He's the real villain. And if you think these humans can't possibly get any dumber...
Well, they can't mess it up any more than they already have.
They decide to shove a T-Rex onto a ship and transport it over to San Diego, California.
What? What? Why would you do that? It's a T-Rex. What do you think it's going to do? It's going to break out and destroy other cities. I swear to God, Spielberg, what were you thinking? What's the matter?
The movie does drag towards the end, and just when you think it's wrapped up, it keeps on going.
And we're led to believe that the T-Rex somehow ate the entire crew without wrecking the ship at all. How did this happen? Did the Raptors secretly get on board? Or is the T-Rex a member of the Templars from Assassin's Creed?
What's more impressive is that afterwards she somehow managed to lock herself back in the cargo hold. This is a T-Rex, not Ted Bundy.
And of course, a T-Rex trawling around a neighborhood and no one happens to be around to see it. Convenient. She even invades someone's back garden and only a child notices. Somehow the parents didn't hear it.
The third act is what turns a lot of the movie around for me. So much of it was filled with stupid decisions and annoying characters, and yes, it's a lazy excuse for Jurassic Park to be Godzilla, but once she's in San Diego, it looks great. Although she doesn't really do that much, which is a bit disappointing. She shoulder barges a bus, she eats a dog, bitch.
There's a dinosaur in our backyard.
Funny line. Kinda makes up for it. I'm just very forgiving of all the bullshit that took place beforehand because of how great this final act is. Yes, it's rushed and sloppy and makes no sense, but fuck me, it looks fun! Even if they clearly learned nothing and still decide to kidnap the T-Rex baby! Very good.
I can't lie, this whole San Diego sequence is just boring to me. The idea of a dinosaur attacking a city is cool conceptually, but it's so thematically and tonally dissonant from the rest of the movie. We went from a contained survival horror film on an island to a high-speed chase through the city. It just doesn't mesh with the kind of movie that was promised. It would be like going to see Alien and suddenly just before the third act, Ripley grabs an AK-47 and starts machine gunning the xenomorph like it's an 80s John Woo film. That kind of stuff can work, but it needs to be consistent with the kind of movie you're making, and this just isn't. It also doesn't help that the sequence quite literally adds nothing to the plot. The sequence starts and ends with the overall story not having affected in the slightest. Take it out and what do you lose? I do really like the final scene with John Hammond's speech, especially given that this is one of Richard Attenborough's last appearances on film before he died. But I really have to ask, why did we need the San Diego sequence to achieve this? Hammond is talking about how in order for dinosaurs to survive, humans have to leave them in peace rather than constantly sticking their noses in, even when they have the best intentions in mind. That's actually a very nice message to end the film on, one that actually differs from the first film, and it ties in well with the motivations of the characters. But I don't see why a pointless action scene was needed for that message to work. If you want my take, the movie should have cut from the survivors getting off the island to them watching Hammond's speech. It would have tied everything together and ended the movie on a heartfelt note, rather than adding in a redundant filler action scene that doesn't contribute anything to the narrative.
The movie isn't particularly good. It has a couple of great moments, but it's just littered with idiotic character moments and annoying actions. The third act kind of saves the boredom, but at that point, it's almost a little too late.
The movie is okay, I guess. The acting is pretty solid across the board. Goldblum is an absolute delight. The music is phenomenal throughout. The effects are mostly good, though the CG aspects haven't aged as well. Must have been a thing in 1997. And there are moments of brilliance found throughout the movie, especially during the first half. All the way up to the RV sequence, I was actually really enjoying myself, but the movie nosedives pretty hard after that. It stops being about the characters and starts valuing mindless spectacle instead, which is a shame to see. I think with a tighter script, a couple of rewrites and some less contrived character decisions, this easily could have been a worthy follow-up to the first film. As is, I guess it's the best of all the sequels, but given how piss poor the others are, that's not really much to boast about.
But the issue is, every single sequel after this is entirely pointless. They've already covered both sides of their message in the first two films. Part 1 was all about the wonder of dinosaurs and then realizing the true consequences of playing God. But this one is about how man are actually in the wrong and are messing with human nature. Dinosaurs are simply doing what their instincts tell them to do.
So how are they gonna make 4 more fucking films?
It's okay, it's over now.